Hey guys, so we have a real treat for you today, and we have the 3 different handguards that CROM USA makes for the Ruger PC Carbine, along with the 2 factory handguards that Ruger makes. So starting from the bottom, we have the CROM high-rise rail. Then above that, we have the CROM low-rise rail, followed by the CROM CROM, which is based off of Magpul's Zhukov handguard. Then we have the Ruger factory rail, and lastly, the Ruger plain handguard. So we're going to take a good look at all of these and compare them, and also see how they look when mated up to the Ruger factory stock as well as the CROM PC Carbine chassis. So starting at the bottom, we have the CROM high-rise rail, and this one has a rail that extends a lot higher than the factory chassis, and to compensate for that, CROM also has a riser rail, there's a tongue twister, that goes on the receiver itself. This cutout over here is sized appropriately, so if you were to put a suppressor on there, you can. There's about a 1 5/8 inch inner diameter there. The low-rise rail, you can see the rail sits very close to the barrel, so unfortunately that one can't accept a suppressor. So if you're going to be going that route, look at the high-rise rail. All of these different options, except for the very base handguard, have M-LOK slots. All 3 of the rail options have it at the 3, 6, and 9 position, and on the CROM they also have it in kind of a 3, 6, and 9, but the 3 and the 6 are kind of, or sorry, the 3 and the 9 are a little bit different height-wise. If we look at sling options, both of the CROM rails have QDs, both fore and aft on the rail, but they are not rotation limited. The CROM and the factory handguard and also the factory base handguard, none of those have any QDs. But there is this little adapter down there at the very base handguard for a hunting style sling mount. If we take a look at the tops of the rails, you can see that both of the CROM rails have full Picatinny across the top. And the CROM has the option of having this little scout rail piece if you want to mount an optic to that. And the Ruger factory one, instead of having a Picatinny rail, to save some weight, they've gone with M-LOK. And of course, the factory basic handguard has nothing other than just the sights up there, which on this particular barrel assembly, the sights are missing. If we look at the barrel takedown mechanism, you can see that all of the CROM options use the basic factory, just little lever there. Now Ruger, when they moved to the factory rail, they also changed the takedown lever. Instead of just a little lever, they now have this nice push button that's basically on the lever. But in addition to that, they also changed their mounting block, and it's significantly larger because this is what their rail secures to. And if you have the the Ruger factory rail, unfortunately you will not be able to mount any of the CROM handguards to that barrel assembly because of the difference in that mounting block. So that said, if you want, Ruger will sell you just this basic handguard block mounting piece. So you can retrofit this piece in order to use CROM handguards on your factory railed barrel assembly if that's what you originally bought. So this should be a familiar sight. This is the Ruger PC Carbine in its absolute base configuration with the base foregrip and handguard. Here's the PC Carbine with its original stock and the factory rail. And Ruger did a good job of making sure that the factory rail aligns with the profile of the stock. Here's the PC Carbine with the factory stock and CROM's CROM, or Magpul Zhukov based handguard. And if we zoom in a little bit over here, you can see the CROM handguard actually matches the profile of the factory stock very well on the sides, and it just protrudes a slight bit at the bottom over here, but really that's of no consequence. Now we have the Ruger factory stock with the CROM low-rise rail, and if we zoom in on that interface, you can see once again CROM's sides align perfectly with the receiver, or sorry, with the factory stock. There is a little bit of a height difference at the edge on the bottom there, but once again, that really shouldn't bother too many people. And lastly, we have the Ruger factory stock with the CROM high-rise rail. So if you see here, we have that rail extension on the receiver up there, and once again the sides fit perfectly with the factory stock, and we have the little bit of a height difference on the bottom. Now we're moving on to the CROM chassis and the different foregrips. So right now I have my CROM chassis along with the factory base handguard. Here's the CROM chassis with the Ruger factory railed handguard. And if we zoom in on that interface, you can see that they match pretty well, and the Ruger factory railed one protrudes a little bit below the stock at the bottom. Now we have the CROM chassis with the CROM handguard. And this is my own personal one, which is the Scout model. Once again, zooming in on that interface, you can see that the CROM chassis and the CROM handguard on the sides, they match up perfectly, and the CROM extends a little bit below on the bottom. Now we have the CROM chassis and the CROM low-rise front rail, and you can see that this thing at the interface, since they're both made by CROM, this thing matches absolutely perfectly. And lastly, we have the CROM chassis with the CROM high-rise railed foregrip. And once again, we can see that everything along that interface, including the top rail, matches perfectly.
So in addition to being able to play around with all of these handguards, I also brought my scale up and was able to weigh them. And this is the complete barrel assembly plus handguard. So starting with the Ruger base handguard, that assembly weighed 2.24 pounds. The Ruger M-Lock rail barrel assembly weighed 2.59 pounds. The CROM CROM weighed in at 2.64 pounds, and this is the Scout model. The CROM low-rise rail was 2.53 pounds, and the CROM high-rise rail was 2.83 pounds, so that was the heaviest. So even though the Ruger M-Lock rail and the CROM low-rise rail were pretty close in weight, I immediately noticed a weight difference just picking up the two side by side, and when I put it on the scale, that actually confirmed what I had felt, that the low-rise rail was a bit lighter. And of course, once you actually mount this on the rifle itself, any weight that's further away from your body, which is the main support point, you're going to notice even more because it has a greater mechanical advantage against you. Additionally, the CROM low-rise rail includes a full Picatinny rail upper and QD sling mount, so that's just more weight you would be adding to the Ruger M-Lock rail if you were to add parts to add those capabilities to it.
So first off, I want to say thank you so much, Rob, for inviting me over to CROM and being able to check out your full product line right here. Tell me a little bit about, what was your inspiration for designing not just one, but 3 different handguards for this PC Carbine platform?
The whole inspiration came from you guys, from everybody that, I saw the potential of this rifle when it first came out. It was a beefed up 1022, chambered in 9mm that took Glock mags, and that was genius right off the bat. All of us have a dozen to 2 dozen Glock mags lying around. The 9mm is dang near as cheap as the 22 to shoot. So you can go out and plink all day long. And really what I saw was that here in California, we had very, very limited options for a free state type of rifle. Here we are, we're banned from having fun guns, and Ruger provided almost, it was a great starting point for us to have a fun gun. And so right off the bat, I wanted to make the chassis, but I couldn't stop there. I already had handguards designed for my other lines of rifles, and I thought, could I take those handguards and start applying them? And the very, very first one that I came up with was a monolithic rail system that went from nose to toes all the way across the rifle, and I came up with a high-rise handguard system. This was the very first. This was the very beginning of it. I didn't like that. When this whole thing started out, Ruger didn't have a handguard rail system yet. When I started designing this, all we had was the original handguard, a little Picatinny, a sling stud, and you run your iron sights. I wanted to have more options with my sights. I wanted to have a full length line of sight, like my ARs or whatever rifle I had. I wanted my rear sight to be as far back as I could get it. I wanted my front sight to be as far forward as I could get it. And I wanted a higher line of sight. When I was mounting these up, I don't shoot these like Dad's old deer rifle. I was I had a more vertical standing position with these rifles, and so I needed a higher line of sight. I also got a great big head, so this was just a better way. I couldn't get down deep enough on Ruger to use their iron sights. I mean, I could force it down there, but
it wasn't natural or comfortable for you.
It wasn't natural or comfortable for me to use the standard iron sights. And everybody's going to be different. I just have an enormous noggin that I was really having to force my cheek into the stock to get a comfortable shooting stance. So this was the very, very first of my well, this is the last version of my first concept. You know, the 369 M-LOK rails, the front and rear QD attachment points, and then a lightened Picatinny rail across the top. It indexes with a steel pin to the rear rail riser, so you guarantee a lockup, you guarantee that it's in line. You know that if you put a iron sight in the front and an iron sight in the rear, that pin is guaranteed that you have one long straight line of sight, and it can't come apart unless you want it to come apart. This thing locks up solid.
Yeah, and I've actually seen a factory foregrip come apart from the receiver during use, so that's a great addition that kind of really prevents that failure mode. Now, one thing that a lot of people online have said, if I just, excuse me while I place these two together, is a lot of them said, you know, this looks like a Boba Fett blaster. How much of Boba Fett, looking at your shirt, was the inspiration for this design?
I don't know what you're talking about. I don't see it. I don't even know who Boba Fett is.
Now, Ruger didn't release their factory rail when you released yours, but now that this is out, you know, what are your thoughts on their factory railed handguard and how that kind of compares to yours?
Well, you know, I mean, it's not bad. It's heavier than it needed to be. It's extremely thick, but it's built like a tank. They put M-LOK on the top, which, with as low as their sights are, I don't know what you would use the top M-LOK for, but it's there nonetheless. My low-rise handguard actually weighs less than this handguard, and my low-rise gives you the QD points and a monolithic rail system across the top. But, you know, I really wish that they had used this mechanism on the back.
I do agree. I like how they've changed that lever, the takedown lever. It's a lot more ergonomic now.
It is. It's a lot more ergonomic. They used a lot of the same internal parts to put it together. Maybe down the road we'll look at putting our own together, reusing the same parts. I'm not 100% there yet, deciding what I want to do. But with the release of the PC charger that just came out, and people asking for handguards for it, you know, that's might be something that we look into here as well. It's just, I'd like to have something for the PC charger. It's just, I'm just not there yet. So, cool. But yeah, it's decent. I mean, and as far as I'm concerned, the rifle was absolutely fine when it first came out. In the very, very first process, if this is all you needed or all you wanted, it's an absolutely fine rifle.
Oh yeah.
It does everything the other ones do in its basic form. You know, this one does everything plus a little bit more. So if you're not the guy that likes to wrench on his own stuff, or you're not the guy that wants to stand out in a crowd, then by all means, it's absolutely fine. If it's good enough, it is. But, you know, if you really wanted to stand out, you know, going to a low rise or high rise or even the CROM handguard systems, these definitely, when you walk out into the shooting range, people stop. They want to see what you're doing. You know, the second handguard I made, it was just kind of more, this really happened with me just goofing off. I wanted to see if it would fit, if there was another handguard out there system that I could put on there. And I had one lying around, I matched it up. The mounts obviously didn't work out right, but
it was just one extra hole you had to drill, basically.
Yeah, it was very, very, you know, I made my own mount system in here, which I added the rail because you didn't need the gas block cover anymore. I mean, I have a stack of these gas blocks. I have them all filled up in a box because I have all these extra parts for Zukov handguards, but it was so sturdy and it's such a well-built handguard. I thought, let's try it out. And now it's probably one of my most popular handguards. And I don't even want to take credit for it because Magpul made the handguard. I just, you know, hammered the thing in together until it made a solid mount. But it was a pain in the keister to make this rail system low enough, that was a big deal. But I really wanted to get that 1/3 co-witness, and we nailed it. I mean, it doesn't get any lower than this. I mean, otherwise the Picatinny would have to be on the barrel. So that's about as low as I can get it. And but yeah, that was the second one I made, and I made this literally to give people more options, again, to get away from the tactical rifle look, away from the regular handguard, type rail system, and give them something more of Dad's old deer rifle look. And I mean, it looks smart. It looks smart when you put it on my chassis, when you put it on a standard chassis, it just looks good. So Magpul did a phenomenal job. I know a lot of guys using it on AKs. I put them on AKs. It's a working handguard. It really is. What happened was I made the high rise. I made this one. Everybody said, "Wow, I really like it, but I want something lower." They wanted. This one had already come out at that point. Okay. But it didn't have the top rail. Yeah. And people kept hammering me about the high rise is too high, and really the high rise, it's not even 3/4 of an inch higher. It's 0.7 inches higher. Again, from my big head, it was perfect, but nonetheless, I worked on it, and this is actually my AR-15 handguard that I repurposed, and I did it exactly the same way that everybody else did. I put it at that top end of the handguard, super small diameter, but I was able to keep all the same features. Now you have that top monolithic rail system. You can put your sights on there, and if you saw it earlier put together, it is right in line with the rear receiver rail. So you can put iron sights on the rear receiver. You put this on there. It was never intended to be a sniper rifle. So you really, if you're putting irons on here,
you could probably put an A2 carry handle on that.
Yeah, exactly. So this was my other concept, and it's been going great. This is actually becoming one of my most popular models. I will be honest, this was the biggest headache for me to make, just because there was so much limited space for me to build this, and trying to get as many features, as much options as I could into one thing. It was just driving me nuts. But I did it. I got it in there, and it's working, and it's solid. I mean, this thing is everything I did was just super solid, and more mounting surfaces than anybody else was using in handguard systems. I used the rear sight holes. I used the bottom mounting holes. I grip onto the outside of the barrel assembly, so it's clamped on there. It's screwed in there. This thing, I mean, these do not move. And I have guys really just running these hard, and they say that they're coming out excellent. So awesome. Yeah, I'm to toot my own horn, I'm really impressed with how this came about. My machine shop has been absolutely stellar in their manufacturing. It's just, I'm not a one-man shop. There's a lot of guys to give credit here. We're a big team, and it's been awesome.
Great. So, you have 3 different options for this platform, handguard wise, and at least as far as I'm aware, like any other competitor out there really only has one. What do you think about that? Do you think they're going to come out with more options as well and catch up, or by that time will you have even more options, for stuff like, say, the Charger?
Look, I never stop working. I work every single day, 8 days a week, 25 hours a day, and I hope more people make options. I look at companies like Tactical Solutions. When they came out, they started making parts for the 1022, and Volkortsen's making parts for the 1022, and it's just so prolific. I mean, there's just so many parts out there for the Glocks and the 1022s and the Remington 700s, and I honestly think this is the next platform for people to just truly expand on. And I've talked to the guys at TACCOM 3G, and I've talked to the guys at Copper Customs, and I've talked to the guys at all these different various companies, and we talk to each other, and I'm supportive of them. They're for the most part seem to be supportive of me. I try not to step on anybody's toes. All the small guys we're all working for the same thing. We just want to have more fun, make more options. I'm not saying that anything I do is better, greater, more. I just wanted more options than what was available out there.
So it's really more community rather than competitors.
Yeah, it's, you know, we're a big family. We're all here for the same reason. And, you know, again, for me, my drive behind this was the California, New York, band state market. Nobody else was paying attention to us. And we make up about 2/3 of the gun market. I mean,
wow.
I mean, we're huge. I mean, is California, we like to spend a lot of money on silly things. I mean, yourself included.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so I saw that, you know, we weren't getting what we wanted. I had this machine shop. I had the ability to do it. Let's start making stuff. And what started out as what was going to be just for me to go goof around, you know, turned into a full-time project and then a full-time product line. And it's been a lot of fun. And the feedback I'm getting from everybody, you know, from the magazine release buttons that I put on there, using the Mossberg stock. Now I have the pistol grip adapter that came out, uses a 1913 rail on the back, AR pistol grip underneath. If you live in a free state, you can run your AR stocks or your SIG stocks and a pistol grip. Now with the new PC chargers that just came out, my chassis fits on the receiver. So if you really want to get into the nitty gritty, you can use a CROM chassis on the PC charger, put my pistol grip adapter on there, it mates up flawlessly cosmetically, and now you have a pistol grip, a rear rail if you choose to use a pistol brace of some sort, and you can run a CROM chassis with the extended magazine release on a PC charger. You know, it's there's a lot of options, and that's the whole thing was about, just options. I just want people to be able to build whatever they wanted, however they wanted.
Well, that's awesome. Hey, thank you so much for your time, Rob. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Best of luck to you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.